the early part of the last decade, I was profoundly influenced by a book written by Robert Wright called Non-Zero. He's since written a bunch of fabulous books, including, and most recently, one about the different manifestations of religion in the modern world, and those which are positive and those which are not. But the essential argument is that humanity has repeatedly saved itself from destruction for more than 100,000 years now by, when walking right up to the edge of its own demise, it's found a way to widen the circle of who constitutes us and to narrow the range of who constitutes them, the other, the people from whom we have to take in order to feel that we matter. That we've found a way to create a larger and larger vision of shared prosperity and shared responsibility and a shared sense of community. Still, for too many of us, our identity is focused too much on whether we have control over someone else's life. That's still the fundamental problem for women and girls all over the world. The people who are afraid to let them blossom because if I don't control somebody else's life, who am I? What am I, a chopped liver? It's a huge issue. And so as you leave here, I want you to think about that. There's no reason to bellyache about all this economic mess. Europe opted to become an economic unit before it was fully, a financial unit before it was fully an economic unit, before it was fully a political unit. Such a thing was always going to work better when the escalator was going up than when the escalator was going down. Jerry Adams talking about it, it breaks my heart to go to Ireland and see young people in their 30s and 40s profoundly depressed because they knew nothing but continuous prosperity, and then all of a sudden it went away. And you talk to the Irish who were in their 80s and they thought, this is just a routine turn in the road. We're used to this. Let's take a deep breath and start again. You all have to think about this. The modern world will require us to develop fundamentally a different identity. Not a single one of us can afford to believe we are important because we control someone else's destiny. That's really the fundamental message of the Arab Spring. And the thwarted attempts to blunt the power of people in the streets in the aftermath of it. But it's true here too, and everywhere else. It's also true that if we are too successful in the struggle for wealth and power, we will be too successful in robbing other people of their dignity. And we will pay a terrible price for it. Let's think about that the other day. Terry McAuliffe and I were laughing about his first business, which was cleaning off people's driveways in frigid Syracuse, when he wasn't old enough to drive the truck to get to the driveway. My first business was working in a grocery store, and the guy was so impressed with my enterprise, even though I was clumsy, that he let me open a used comic book stand on the side. From that day until this, through ups and downs, I never doubted that I could support myself. We forget that this economic crisis that is gripping the world is about way more than money. The dignity that comes to every man and woman who knows that he or she, no matter what happens, will at least be able to put food on the table, and if you have children, take care of them, and have some amount of autonomy, is a matter of the human spirit as much as it is a matter of the money in your pocketbook. And whether that dignity can best be advanced by pitting a society against its own government, or creating a country in which government and the economy work together to build shared values so that everybody has a chance to find their personal way. I think for Americans, that's the big question of the time. I'm not a runner for anything anymore, and I'm merely old enough to have seen it all. And it is my strongest conviction that the world's greatest challenges today are simply modern manifestations of our oldest demons. The truth is, the future has never had a big enough constituency, and the present has always been too strong. Always. It is in the nature of things. But we are now called upon, all of us who are fortunate enough to have seen things, and fortunate enough to have enough to be able to move around and experience things, to try to create a whole different mindset. We're in a pitch battle between the present array of resources and attitudes and the future struggling to be born. It's struggling just as much in every distressed community in America as it was in the square in Cairo or among the young people on the internet in Tunis. And we have to make more room for the future as opposed to the present. And we have to define the meaning of our own life as something other than our ability to control someone else's. That's really what the whole women and girls track is. When you put it down to one simple thing, that's what it comes down to. For too long, human societies have been dominated by people who thought they could only matter if they could control someone else's choices. And now we have to find a way to make all these choices together. And we have to be broad-minded enough to make sure some of those choices are made for people not yet even alive. So when you leave here, I think you should feel good about being part of the non-governmental movement. But I do not think you should be anti-government. If you're prosperous, I think you should feel grateful for the chance you've had. And I want you to enjoy your prosperity. But you shouldn't feel that it is sustainable for your children unless more people have a chance to have their prosperity. And I think that we should all know that nobody can be a responsible citizen of his or her own community or country without trying to be a responsible citizen of the world. There are challenges we all face, and we have to face them together. And the last thing I would like to say is I keep reading these surveys that show that young people, at least in the United States and other wealthy, well-established countries, are getting increasingly discouraged. And I understand that at one level because, what the heck, everything was pretty good for a long time and now it's not. But what I would say to them is, it's okay to be realistic, but to be discouraged about your future is to make a decision in advance to be disappointed. And it is a cop-out. Nobody has a right to permanent prosperity. Nobody has a right to a life free of challenges. Everybody is called upon at some time or another to reimagine all the premises of their lives and the lives of their family and the lives of their nations and to create a whole different future. You should be grateful that you're living in a time when you're being given a chance to build a new world. And the uncertainties of the moment don't have to exist 10 years from now. It really just matters. Will be determined by what kind of decisions we make. So, I don't know how you feel leaving here, but all of you made me a lot more optimistic than I was when you showed up a couple of days ago. And you just remember that. Pessimism is an advanced decision to be disappointed. Saves you a lot of time. Saves a lot of time, and you don't have to go to the effort and try to change things. But it's a dead bang loser. You know, this is just the modern world's version of challenges that have existed always, as humanity has struggled to find a higher and higher level of meaning and reach and interconnection. We should be grateful that we live now and grateful that we have the chance to do something about it. And we should feel responsibility to do it. I personally am profoundly grateful that you care enough to come here and show up year in and year out and think of just one more thing you can do to give one more person a better chance. And I hope that next year you want to do it again. Thank you, and God bless you.